Okay, just develop. Okay. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. We'll be having our biology class this afternoon, and I want to believe we are already around, ready for today's class. If you are around, if you are here with me, please just signify. Let me just know that you are present with us here. Just say hello once you hear me. So we.
Yes,
Oh, thank you very much. I can hear somebody talking already. We
present.
won't. All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Present.
Thank you very much. We won't want to waste much of our time today, so it's a couple of minutes past 12 already, so we won't want to waste much of our time. So we'll quickly go straight to what we have for today. I was going through your question, this particular JAMB question this morning. So I came across this particular question and I decided to take that question. Yesterday we talked about uh, tissues and supporting systems, and we were specific to that of animals. I was planning to take the one in plants today, but I came across this question and I felt that it needs to be touched. So that's why we're going to have this particular topic today. The question is question number 26 rather. Question number 26. That's the one we'll be treating now. The question says, it says the part of the human gut that has an acidic content is the A. Stomach, B. Duodenum, C. Ileum, D. Colon. The part of the human gut that has an acidic content is the dash. A. We have stomach, B. Duodenum, C. Ileum, and D. We have colon. For that particular topic, it is very, very specific to what we refer to as alimentary canal or digestive system. Alimentary canal and digestive system. That is where that particular topic is emanating from. The part of the human gut. This particular thing that you are seeing here, human gut, is talking about the intestine of humans. So where exactly do we have all the alimentary canal of humans? So if we are having this particular question, it is directly talking about the digestive system in animals. So that is what we'll be talking about today. Our topic today is going to be alimentary canal and digestive system. Our topic today is alimentary canal and digestive system. That's what we want to talk about today. So when we talk about alimentary canal or digestive system, what comes to mind? What is that thing that clicks in our mind? That is what we want to look at today. Now, let me quickly, this word that we have here at the back of it here, this particular thing here called system. I want us to quickly have a review of what it is. What is a system? A system is actually gotten from a particular topic that is called organization of life. Organization of life, and organization of life is talking about cell to tissues to organs and systems. In some modern textbooks, you will see organisms. So this is what it looks like. The cell to tissues to organs, then systems, and possibly what? The organism. Now, what do we mean by system? Let us quickly take a rundown of it. The cell itself is referred to as the simplest basic functional unit of life. Cell is the simplest basic structural functional unit of life. Cell is the simplest basic structural functional unit of life. Every organism that you can think of is made up of a cell, provided that organism is a living thing. Provided that material or that substance is a living thing, it must be what's made up of cell. Now we have different organisms depending on the type or the number of cells that they have. We have those that are referred to as unicellular organisms. Those ones, they have just what? One cell. And we have those that are referred to as what? Multicellular organism. Those ones have what? Two or more cells. Those ones have two or more cells. So we have the unicellular organisms having just one cell and the multicellular organisms having two or more cells. For the unicellular organism, that single cell has the ability to perform all the functions of this living thing. All the characteristics of a living thing is what carried out by that single cell. Do we understand that? Hello? Hello, are we together? Okay, good. That single cell is what is responsible for carrying out all the characteristics of what? Of living thing. The only problem there is that it will not have the what? Ability to do as much as the other cells would have done, those ones that are found in the multicellular organisms. The reason is because in the multicellular organism, each of the cells have what? Each of the cells are specific in function. Each of the cells in the what? In the multicellular organisms are specific in function. What do I mean by that? We have different, when we talk about the characteristics of living things, I believe we know that we have let me start with the popular one we all used to talk about, movements. We have movements, we have respiration, we have nutrition, we have irritability, we have growth, we have excretion, we have reproduction, we have reproduction, we have deaths. Some textbooks have added adaptation as well as competition. Now, all of these that we have listed here, we have a number of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All of these characteristics that have been listed here, each of them are what performed by specific what cells. These characteristics are what carried out by certain cells. So let me go back to what we refer to as cell. Now I said the cell is the simplest basic structural functional unit of life, and I said we have two types of organisms based on the number of cells that they have. We have the unicellular organisms that have one cell, and the multicellular organisms that have two or more cells. They have more than one cell. Are we together? And I said that the cells have the ability to carry out, in the unicellular organism, that single cell will carry out all these characteristics that we have listed here: movement, respiration, nutrition, irritability, growth, excretion, reproduction, death, adaptation, and competition. But in the multicellular organism, there is going to be a specific cell that is assigned to a specific function here. A specific cell is assigned to carry out a specific characteristic. Now, it is not possible for a cell to carry out on its own. In the case of the multicellular organisms, it is not possible for a particular cell to carry out the function that is what's listed here. A cell cannot be responsible for movement or respiration or irritability or nutrition, as the case might be. So that is what is going to lead us to talk about what we have here as as tissues. As tissues. What we have here as tissues. Now, when we look at that, what do we mean? What do we refer to as tissue? What do we refer to as tissue? Tissue, okay, let me use this. Tissue, okay, is the collection of cells with similar function, with similar structure and function. Now, I said a tissue is the collection of cells. It's the collection of cells with similar structure and functions. So what we are saying is, when we have a collection of cells that have similar structure, they are structurally similar, they have similar structure, they look alike in certain ways. So they have they are referred to as substances with similar structure. And then when their functions are aligned, when they have a similar function, then they are grouped together to become what we refer to as the tissues. Do we understand that? They are grouped together to become tissue. So cells with similar structure and function make up the tissues. And then we have we have the we have the organs now. Organs, these are collections of tissues now. Tissues with similar structure and function. When we have the tissues to be a collection of cells with similar structure and function, then when we have collection of tissues as well, collection of tissues with similar structure and function, they make up what we refer to as the organ. They make up what we refer to as as the organ. And lastly, we now have we have the systems. These are collections of organs with similar structure, and function. So when they have similar structures and functions, they are grouped together to become what we refer to as what? As the system. So I want to believe now that we understand what a system is. So considering what we are now talking about, we're talking about digestive system. So what do we mean by digestive system? What are digestive systems? What is digestive system? That is the topic, or that is the question that we have to treat now. So when we talk about digestive system, we're talking about a collection of organs. This is a collection of organs working together. Okay, let me do this. Collection of organs with similar, remember when we're talking about the systems, we said they are what? The organs have similar structure, with similar structure working together to perform, or let's say to carry out or aid digestion. Are we together? So hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. So like I was saying, digestive system is a collection of organs with similar structure working together to carry out or to aid digestion. Now when we say that, what actually is digestion? Digestion is what? Digestion is the breakdown of food particles to generate energy. That is what digestion is about. The breakdown of food particles to what? To generate energy that is being used by the body. So the organs that take part in this digestion make up the digestive system. The organs that take part in what? In digestion make up what we refer to as the digestive system. So I said that digestion is the process of breakdown of organic food. If I have to make it a complex, a more refined definition, I say it is the breakdown of organic. Remember, the food we eat, they are majorly what? Organic what? Substances. Organic food what? Samples with what? With large insoluble molecules. With large insoluble molecules into what? Into smaller or simpler substances. that is easily absorbable or assimilated for use by the body with the help of digestive enzymes. So this is what digestion is about. Are we together? This is what digestion is about. I said it is the breakdown of organic food samples with large insoluble molecules into smaller or simpler substances that is easily absorbable or assimilated for use by the body with the help of digestive enzymes. That is telling us that apart from the organs that bring about digestion, there is still going to be the need for certain substances to come into play, and those are the digestive enzymes. Those are the digestive enzymes. Are we together? Are we together? So
Yes, sir.
we will quickly be looking at digestion now. So since we are talking about, because I'm going to base this particular topic, I will make it specific to the animals. So I'll be using man as an example. Though we have a table I will give us that table later on. A table that can tell us the kind of organs that certain organisms possess. Are we together? But for the case of this, let me just list out these parts of the alimentary canal, and then we'll take them one after the other, discussing all of their functions. So, parts of the alimentary canal. Please, whenever you hear the word alimentary canal, it is still talking about digestive system. Parts of the alimentary canal. Parts of the alimentary canal. So one, we have the mouth. Two, we have the pharynx. Three, we have the esophagus, or in some textbooks it is called the gullet. Some textbooks also call it the throat. Then number four, we have the stomach. Number five, we have the small intestine. The small intestine, or the ileum. It can also be called the cecum. Number six, we have the appendix. Okay, let me, please, number five, let me use, instead of writing the small intestine first, let me quickly do this. Number five, let me have duodenum. Then number six is not going to be the small intestine, or the ileum like I called it, or the cecum. And then number 7, we're going to be having the appendix. Number 8, we have the large intestine. 9, we'll be having the rectum or the colon. And 10, we'll be having the anus. So these are the organs that will take part in digestion. These organs make up what we refer to as the digestive system or the alimentary canal. So let us take them one after the other. What happens in each of these parts? So we're starting with the what? We're starting with the mouth. We're starting with the mouth. So what happens in the mouth? What happens in the mouth? In the mouth, we have what we refer to as what? Mastication. In the mouth, the first thing that happens there is what? Mastication. So what is mastication? Mastication can be defined as simply, let me just give you this. Mastication simply means chewing. Mastication means what? Chewing. Mastication simply means chewing. So it is very, very important for us to know and understand that whenever we put something in our mouth, we need to what? We need to chew. So that is what this part. That is why we say that digestion starts in the mouth. When you see or you come across any question of such, you need to understand that what? You say that digestion starts from where? Digestion starts from where? It starts from the mouth. That is where digestion starts from. So what are the things that happen in the mouth? Like I have said, the first thing that happens in the mouth is what? Is mastication. The first thing that happens in the mouth is mastication. And after that, we have the second thing that happens, but in the second thing that happens, but this is only in the what? In the starch. That is where saliva mixes with what? With ptyalin. With the food substance. The mixing of the food substance with saliva. Now, in the saliva, there is an active ingredient called ptyalin. Saliva contains an active enzyme called ptyalin. It is called ptyalin. That is what that particular enzyme is what is called. It is called ptyalin. So what does ptyalin do? Ptyalin is responsible for converting. Ptyalin helps to what? Ptyalin converts starch. Starch is being converted by what? Ptyalin to maltose. That is the what? The enzymatic reaction of the what? Of that catalyst, the ptyalin. It converts what? Starch to maltose. So When we are eating any food substance that is a carbohydrate, the digestion of carbohydrates will be what? Starting in the mouth, where after chewing, the enzyme in saliva which is called tyalin, will act on the starch, it acts on the carbohydrate, converting it to what we refer to as maltose. And then the food is what? Rolled into what? A bolus form, and it is rolled down the what? The esophagus. So the saliva mixes with the food to form a bolus which is swallowed. So that is what happens in the what? In the mouth. So after the mouth, the number 2 organ that we have there is the what? Is the pharynx. The what? The pharynx. So what happens in the pharynx? What happens in the pharynx? Number 2, pharynx. Now, I need us to understand that the pharynx is a gateway. The pharynx is what? Is referred to as a gateway. A gateway. Now, why do we call it, or why do we refer to as the pharynx as a gateway? The pharynx is a gateway between the esophagus and the trachea. The esophagus is part of the digestive system, but the trachea is not part of the digestive system. The trachea is part of the what? Is part of the respiratory system. The trachea is part of the respiratory system. So why do we now bring in trachea into digestive system or into alimentary canal? Now, I want us to try this. Is it possible for any person to swallow and breathe at the same time? Is it possible for us? Is there anybody amongst you who can swallow possibly saliva? You want to swallow saliva and you want to breathe at the same time. Is it possible? I need your response, please.
No,
No, sir.
No.
yes, sir.
Okay. If you say no, there's a reason for that. It is simply because we have at least one of these two opening per time. One of these two can only what? Open per time. The both of them cannot be open at the same time. That is why we have what? The function of pharynx here. Now let me quickly do a simple structural sketch. Let's assume we have something that looks like this. And this place here, this one here in the front, are we together? Hello, are we together?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, this one in the front is referred to as the what? The trachea. And the one at the back is referred to as the esophagus. Now, there is something in the middle here that looks like a flipper. Something that looks like this. It has the ability to flip and cover the right. It has the ability to flip and cover the right like this. I'm coming. Naturally, it should be like this. Are you with me? So it has the ability to flip and cover the right such that it will look like this. Now, if you look at it, it is assumed that this other part here, the esophagus is open at this point in time, isn't it? This thing here, this flipper, this thing that I call the flipper, is called, we call it the epiglottis. Are we together? So it has the ability to flip and cover the trachea, or it can also flip and cover the esophagus. Do you understand me now? Are we together? So whenever it covers the trachea, it creates an opening for the esophagus for you to be able to swallow. And when on the other hand it is covering the esophagus, then it is creating an opening for the trachea for you to what? For you to breathe in air. Breathe in and out air. You breathe in oxygen and you breathe out carbon dioxide. That is how that part works. So the function of the pharynx is to what? Create an opening for the esophagus so that the food we are swallowing goes into the what? The esophagus. Now, at this point, I need you to understand, some of us might have experienced it, and that is the reason why sometimes when we are eating, we get choked on what we are eating, and it sometimes comes out through our nose. It is because at that point in time, we were not careful enough or gentle enough to swallow and breathe simultaneously, or to swallow and breathe independently. We were trying to do the both of them simultaneously, and that was why the food choked us and it is not coming out from our what? Our nostrils. Or you drink water and you find out that it is coming out from your nostril. It is because you were not careful enough to allow the epiglottis to cover the trachea, having an opening for you to swallow through the esophagus. So at that point, it is assumed that what? It is assumed that the epiglottis is midway. It is assumed that the epiglottis is midway like this. It is not covering the esophagus completely. You can see that there is a little opening in the esophagus, and also there is a little opening in the trachea. So this is what happens when you don't you don't take it easy while eating. You don't allow the epiglottis to cover the trachea completely, so it will give room for the esophagus to swallow whatever it is that you want to swallow. So that is just the function of the pharynx. It is a gateway between the esophagus and the trachea, allowing the food that we are eating or swallowing to go through into the what? Into the esophagus. Now, the movement of the food, let's go now into, so that is what happens in the what? In the pharynx. Let us now go to the next one, which is what? Which is the esophagus. 3. Esophagus. So what happens in the esophagus? The food that we eat goes down this system in a peristaltic movement. The food eaten goes down the throat or esophagus in a wave-like manner called peristalsis. It goes down, the food eaten goes down the throat or esophagus in a wave-like manner called what? Peristalsis. It follows a pattern we refer to as what? A peristaltic movement. The pattern is what? Peristaltic movement. So let's assume we have the pharynx, the esophagus, like this. So the food goes down from the mouth, it goes down like this. You can see that that's a wave-like system till it gets into the what? Till it gets into the stomach. So this movement is what we refer to as what? As the wave-like movement, or peristaltic. Or peristaltic movement. So that is what we refer to as what? As peristalsis. We refer to it as peristalsis. That is what happens in the esophagus, or the gullet, or the throat, as the case might be. Are we together? And after that, the food goes into what? Into the stomach. That's the next organ that we'll be treating now. The what? The stomach. Number 4. Stomach. Number 4 is stomach. So what happens in the stomach? What happens in the stomach? First, the food coming from the esophagus gets into the stomach and it meets an acidic what? Acidic content or nature. An acidic content or nature which is brought about by the action of a particular substance called the gastric juice. The food meets an acidic compound or environment in the stomach. In the stomach. This is brought about by the action of an enzyme produced in the gastric gland. In the gastric gland, called gastric juice. This particular enzyme is called what? Gastric juice. It is the reason why the stomach has a what? The reason why the stomach has an acidic medium. The reason why the stomach has an acidic what? Medium is as a result of the function of the gastric juice. The gastric juice that is produced by the gastric gland. Are we together? The gastric juice that is produced by the what? By the gastric gland. So it makes it possible for the food to what? Get into the stomach, meeting an acidic what? Nature. Now there is a reason for that happening. There is a reason why the stomach experiences that what? That nature, that medium. Why it has what? That acidic medium. It is because the stomach is trying to prevent, or our body is trying to prevent the food we eat from what? From rotting between the what? Between the time frame. It is trying to prevent the food from decaying between that what? Between the time frame of digestion. If the food were to rot before digestion completely takes its course, then absorption will probably not take place, or we will not be out getting as much energy or nutrients as is necessary from the food that is being eaten. So for the food we eat to be able to stay its course through to the end of digestion, that is the reason why it is getting into the stomach, meeting an acidic medium. So the acidic medium prevents the food from rotting. So that is and the active substance in the gastric juice. The gastric juice, because you could be asked that what is the active substance in the gastric juice? The active substance in the gastric juice, is HCl. That is hydrochloric acid. It has hydrochloric acid with a pH of 2.5. That is a very very strong acid. So if this acid were to pour on our skin, it has the tendency of burning us, but God is just so wonderful as to put this particular acid in our stomach without it having effect on us, except on the food we eat. So that is what happens in the stomach, where the HCl that is found in the gastric juice prevents the food from denaturing or from decaying. Are we together? And then we have also, so this is the first thing that happens in the stomach. This is the first thing that happens in the stomach. So we also have another one that happens in the stomach. Another thing that happens in the stomach, we have the production of two enzymes. Or let me call them digestive enzymes. One, we have we have renin. Its function is to curdle milk. It acts on milk. It curdles or coagulates milk. And then we have the second one, which is pepsin. Pepsin here is acting on proteins. It converts proteins to peptones. It converts proteins to peptones. So this particular enzymes here, they carry out a further digestion of the food we have eaten, so as to turn it into a semi-liquid. After these actions of the enzymes, the food is converted to it's no longer going to be solid. It becomes a semi-liquid, which we refer to as chyme. The food is thereby converted into a semi-liquid paste called chyme. called chyme. So when the food is what being broken down, it is being what degraded, it is being digested and becomes what something that we refer to as what chyme. At that point, it is no longer going to be the solid that we put in our mouth. It is no longer going to be that mold of eba or the slice of yam or the spoon of rice, as the case might be. Remember that what in the mouth you have masticated, you have chewed. Enzyme, if it were to be the carbohydrate, the enzyme called thiolane has acted on the food, converting it to maltose. And if it is not carbohydrate, saliva has mixed with it and it has been what transported through the pharynx into the esophagus and what getting into the stomach. It has been acted upon by gastric juice, renin and pepsin, as the case might be, and then it is no longer going to be solid, but this time around it's going to be what it's going to be seen as a semi-solid. It's going to be as what a semi-solid, or sorry, a semi-liquid paste, and it is referred to as chyme. This process of conversion of the food substance from that solid to semi-liquid solid is referred to as what? As a process known as churning movement. That's what we refer to it as. It is called what? Churning movement. The process of converting the food from the solid substance to what? A semi-liquid paste called chyme is referred to as what? The churning process. Hello, are we getting what we are discussing?
Sir.
Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right. Thank you very much. I needed to get your response. So that is what happens in the stomach, and then the food is further passed down the system. So who can tell us the next organ that we will be going through now? The next organ that the food will be entering is going to be what after the stomach? What is going to be the next organ that the food will be going through?
Small intestine.
Small intestine.
Duodenum.
The duodenum, yes. I listed the small intestine, then I corrected it that the fifth one is going to be what? After the small intestine, after the stomach, the food be going into the duodenum. Actually, the duodenum is the what? Is the entrance into the small intestine. So in some textbooks, they might omit that process of the duodenum, but what happens in the duodenum will be specifically what explained in that aspect. So what happens in the duodenum is what we want to talk about now. So that is the fifth organ is what? The duodenum. The duodenum. So what happens in the duodenum? In the duodenum, we have the production of certain enzymes. We call them the pancreatic enzymes or the digestive enzymes. Production, we have the production of three main groups of enzymes. They are called the pancreatic, the pancreatic or digestive enzymes. They are called what? The pancreatic or the digestive enzymes. That is what we refer to them as, the pancreatic or the digestive enzymes. So what are these three enzymes? The first one is what? We have the amylase. Amylase. The second one, sorry, so we don't get confused, let me use a bullet numbering here. The first one I said it is amylase. The second one is what? The second one is trypsin, or let me be specific. The second one is a protease. And the third one is a lipase. So these are the three types of enzymes, the three groups of enzymes that are produced in the duodenum. They are referred to as what? The pancreatic enzymes or the digestive enzymes. Are we together? So the amylates convert what? They carry out further conversion of what? Further conversion of starch. Remember that the starch has been what? Has been converted to what? To maltose. The proteases carry out also further conversion of proteins. Proteins to, or these are proteins and peptones. Proteins and peptones to polypeptides. And then we have the last one, which is what? The lipase, which carries out what? Conversion of fats and oils to fatty acid and glycerol. So the lipase converts what? It converts the fat and oils to fatty acid and glycerol. We have the protease. An example of a protease is trypsin. It converts what? Proteins to peptones and then to polypeptides. We have the amylases converting what? Carrying out further conversion of what? Of starch till we what? Till we have the what? The glucose. Are we together? So all of these enzymes, these three major groups of enzymes are found. They are found in the duodenum. Also in the duodenum, we have the what? The action of a particular enzyme called, or should I call it an enzyme? Yes, it is also an enzyme. Or let me call it a substance. Let me call it a substance. It is referred to as what? The bile. The bile, it emulsifies fats. Emulsifies fats. That is, it breaks down. It breaks down fats. That is what it does. That is what this particular bile does, and it is produced in a sac called the bile duct. Produced in the bile duct. Or let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. Transported through the bile duct. It has a complementary greenish yellow color. It has a complementary what? Greenish yellow color. So it is also found produced in the what? In the duodenum, and its function is to what? To break down or to emulsify fat. That is its own function. Its function is to what? To break down and emulsify fat. Are we together? It emulsifies fat. That's its function. So that is what happens in the duodenum. And after the food must have been acted, depending on the type of food, if it is what it is, if it is, let me ask, if the food you are eating is, let's assume the food you have just eaten is, let's say you just ate, let's say pork meat, for example. You just ate pork meat. Who can tell me which of these three digestive enzymes will act on that meat, on that food substance? Hello? Hello?
Sir,
If the question there, the question I just asked, I said, if the food substance you are eating or you have just eaten is uh, pork meat, if you are just finished eating pork meat, now which of those digestive enzymes will be acting on the food?
lipase.
Lipase. Okay, I understand why you said lipase, because the food has high content or concentration of what, of fat. But remember, it is also what, meat, so it also has what, protein. So we will have what, the lipase acting on the food, as well as what, as well as the protease. So each of them will act on the what, on the food substance. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Alright, okay. So after the duodenum must have what, done its own or carried out its own function, the next part of the the next part of the substance of the digestive system we'll be talking about is going to be the what? Is going to be the
Small intestine.
good, is going to be the small intestine. Alright, so we have, please, I'm coming. I'm trying to fix my screen very well so you get everything we're talking about. So the next thing we'll be talking about now is the small intestine. That's going to be what? Our organ number 6. Organ number 6 is what? The small intestine. The small intestine. So what happens in the small intestine? What are those things that are discussed, or those things that happen in the small intestine? They are the things we want to quickly look at now. So first and foremost, I need to explain this. You may come across a question that will tell you that uh, digestion ends where, absorption occurs where, or what is the last phase of digestion in man, or they could tell you that the organ in the alimentary canal of man that is responsible for a dual function is what. All of these questions have their answers in the small intestine. So let us quickly look at how all of these answers are what are come how they come about, how they arrive at all of these answers. First and foremost, remember that we've been digesting food, and we have just passed through the duodenum. So the food that is being digested in the duodenum is actively pushed into or passed into the small intestine. The food is passed into the into the small intestine. So what happens? What happens in the small intestine? That is what we want to quickly look at now. In the small intestine, which is also called the ileum, that is where we have the what? Remember that I said that the duodenum is an entrance, is the entrance into the small intestine. So further things that happen in the small intestine is that we have the further digestion of the food that we have eaten. Example, we have the action of some intestinal enzymes, secretions in the intestinal walls that carry out further conversion. Example, we have enzymes like racine, like maltose, like sucrase, like lactase. All of these enzymes are secreted in what? Let me put this. Said further conversion of food substance or chyme. Who can tell me why I am referring to it as chyme? Hello? Who can tell me the reason why I am referring to the food substance as chyme? Can anybody answer that question?
Because it's a semi-liquid.
Yes, because it is no longer solid, but it is now a semi-liquid. So we have further conversion of food substance or chyme by some intestinal secretions, e.g. we have erepsin. Erepsin that converts polypeptides. It converts polypeptides to amino acid. We have another one called the maltase. maltase, which converts maltose to 2 glucose or 2 units. Two units of glucose. This is the enzymatic reaction here. Maltose is converted by maltase to glucose plus glucose. And then we have another one called, okay, this is the first one we talked about. Then this is the second one. We have another one. We refer to this one as sucrase. Sucrase. Sucrase also converts sucrase. Converts sucrose to glucose and fructose. And then we have another one called the lactase. Lactase converts lactose to glucose plus galactose. So these enzymes that have been listed here, we have erepsin. Erepsin here is converting polypeptides to amino acid. Remember that polypeptides were generated after the food had been converted from what? Look at this now. In this position here, I said was proteins carrying out further conversion of proteins and peptones to polypeptides. Are we together? So what is responsible for the first conversion? That is where we have the action of, if you look at this place here, we have the action of the what? The pepsin. Pepsin converts what? Proteins to peptones. Proteins are what? First converted by pepsin to what? To peptone in the what? In the stomach. And then when the food, that proteinous substance, gets into the duodenum, it is further converted from what? From the peptone to polypeptide. Now, are we together? By a particular type of protein called, let me just quickly put it here, trypsin. Trypsin is responsible for this conversion. So it converts what? It converts proteins and peptones to what? To polypeptides. And then when the food gets into the small intestine, we have it was being acted upon by what? By erepsin. Erepsin will now convert it from the what? From the polypeptides to what? To amino acid, which happens to be the last phase of what? Or the last degradative phase of proteinous substances. And then we have the second one here, maltase. Remember that the food that we put in our mouth, the ones that are starch, they have been converted by an enzyme in the saliva called ptyalin. Ptyalin has converted the starch to what? To maltose. So it is this maltose now that we now have maltase acting on. The maltase will act on the maltose to convert it to 2 units of glucose. This is the reaction here. Maltose is being acted upon by what? By maltase. Maltase will convert the maltose to glucose plus glucose. So we are having 2 units of what? 2 units of glucose. This is one and this is another. And then we have the third one, which is sucrase. Sucrase converts sucrose to glucose and fructose. Are we together? It converts what? It converts sucrose to glucose and fructose, or we say it converts it to what? Glucose plus fructose. And lastly, we have the what? The lactase. Lactase is responsible for converting lactose to what? Glucose plus galactose. So these are the things that happen in what? In the small intestine. After this, we say that what? Digestion has ended. Digestion has ended. So in case you were asked the question that where does digestion end in the alimentary canal, digestion ends in what? Digestion ends in the small intestine. Digestion ends in the what? In the small intestine. Digestion ends in the what? In the small intestine. Does anybody have any question? At this point, does anybody have any question? Before we move further, does anybody have any question? I'm waiting. Any question?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Somebody wanted to ask you a question. Let me hear you. Hello, any question?
Sir, no.
Alright, so let's move further. So we have just concluded the digestion now. That is where digestion ends. Now, in this same organ called the small intestine, another thing happens. So the first thing that has happened in the small intestine, we said it is what? Is digestion. Now the second thing that happens in the small intestine is what? Assimilation. Assimilation of nutrients into the blood stream. Assimilation of nutrients into the what? Into the blood stream. That is the second thing that happens in the small intestine. The first thing is what? The first thing is the end of digestion. And the second thing now is what? Assimilation of nutrients into the blood stream. So how does that happen? Assimilation or absorption of nutrients into the bloodstream. How does that happen? Now, in the small intestine is lined with some structures that help or make it possible for sieving to occur. What do I mean? Sieving. Huh? Separation of separation of soluble soluble and insoluble and insoluble materials. Separation of what? Separation of soluble and insoluble materials. The soluble materials here are referred to as soluble materials are the digested nutrients, while the insoluble materials are the indigested or indigestible substances. The indigestible substances, they are referred to as what? They are referred to as the insoluble substances. Please, you need to take note of that. Are we together? You need to take note of that. So we said that was the soluble nutrients, the soluble materials that digested was nutrients, while the insoluble materials are the indigestible substances. Now, how does sieving or how does it happen? How does it occur? We have sieving. We have sieving separating two substances. Example, if you have water mixed with sand, you can quickly use a sieve to sieve out the sand, giving you your water separate what from the sand. Or you can use it to separate two substances of what different masses. Example, if you have sand and you have bean grains, you can easily pour the mixture into a sieve, and that sieve will what separate out your sand from your bean grains. So that is what happens in what? In the small intestine. In the small intestine is lined. The small intestine, excuse me, the small intestine is lined with some finger-like substances or structures called, these finger-like structures are called, we call them villi. We call them villi. They are very very tiny, but actually when viewed under a microscope, this is how they look. They look somewhat like this. So you find numerous this on the what? I'm trying to depict uh, what actually happens in that part of the what of the body, so it will be clearer to you. Don't mind my diagram, please. I just need you to understand the context of what we are actually talking about. So something like this is what happens, but each of these things are inverted. Actually, they will look somewhat like this, having all the cones like this. So this is what we'll be having. Let me quickly make this. We'll be having something that looks like this, and around here like this. Here we now have
Huh?
here we have what we refer to as the blood stream, or let me use this to depict, wow, I'm coming please. Okay, let me use this to depict our bloodstream. So all of this place here is where we'll be having our what? Our blood stream. So inside this place is just where we have in here. So in this place, that's the what? The blood stream. Here is the small intestine. So what we have inside our bloodstream is the blood that needs what? Nutrients to transport. So in here is where we have, or let me use a different color. Let's see. Let me use this color. So in the intestine, in the small intestine, we have what? We have the nutrients, the digestible materials that have just been digested. That is where we have it in the small intestine. So it needs to get into the bloodstream. So these nutrients will pass through, the nutrients will pass through the what? It will pass through the villi. Each of these holes here, they are referred to as what? As villus. Each of these holes here, they are referred to as the villus. So we have the villus absorbing the nutrients. We have the villus absorbing the nutrients into, from the small intestine into the blood stream. So the villus absorbs the what? It absorbs, it allows the passage of the nutrients. It allows the passage of the nutrients from the what? From, excuse me. The villus allows the passage of the nutrients from the small intestine. As you can see here, we have the small intestine here with the nutrients, the digested what? Nutrients. So it allows the nutrients from the small intestine to move into the what? Into the blood stream. So very soon we will now be having all of these materials that are in the what? In the small intestine. You see them moving into the what? Into the blood stream. They will be passing through the villus and they will be moving out. You'll be noticing that they are moving out through the villus like this into the blood stream. Do we understand? So that is what happens in what? In the small intestine. You notice that gradually the nutrients in the small intestine will start moving out into the what? They start moving out into the bloodstream through the villus. So the nutrients pass through the villus and they move into the blood stream. So that's the second thing that happens in the what? The second thing that happens, the second process that happens in the small intestine. The first one we said is what? The first one is that digestion ends in the small intestine, and secondly, we have what? Absorption taking place. So it is also in the small intestine that we have the what? The end of digestion. Are we together? Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So let us continue. So that is what happens in the small intestine. So we have succeeded in explaining the digestion and then absorption. So the question now is, when absorption takes place, when all the nutrients that are found inside this what? Inside the small intestine, when they have gone into the large into the bloodstream. I'm coming. Let me quickly do something. I want us to understand what I am actually saying very well. So when all the nutrients in the small intestine have been absorbed through the villus into the bloodstream, what now happens to the contents of the small intestine? We notice that all the what, all the substance in the small intestine will be moved. All the please get it right, all the digestible. Remember that we said that it is the mixture of what? We have the mixture of soluble materials, which are the digested nutrients, and insoluble materials, which are the undigested or indigestible what? Substances. So when the absorbed materials, the soluble materials have been absorbed into the bloodstream, what now happens to the what? To the insoluble materials. The insoluble materials are then passed into the what? The large intestine. That is the thing that happens to the remnants, let me call it that, the waste of digestion. You know, when digestion takes place, there will definitely be what? The waste material. So the waste are then passed from the small intestine into the large intestine, and then the large intestine is also called the colon in mammals. So that is the next phase now. So I have said that assimilation also takes place in the what? In the small intestine. So the next thing I want to talk about is what? Is number 7, which is talking about 7, which is talking about the large intestine. The large intestine. So what happens in the large intestine? That is what we want to look at now. We want to look at what happens in the large intestine. So the large intestine is where we have what? We have the removal of the digested what? The indigested materials, the indigestible substances. In mammals, the large intestine is bigger than the small intestine. Yes, that is why it is also called the large intestine, because it is smaller in size than it is larger in size than the small intestine. So it is connected to the what? To the end of the ileum. The ileum is also referred to as the small intestine. So that is where we also have the what? The appendix. Now the appendix, I have jumped that. Before, okay, let me just quickly talk about that. The appendix. The appendix. The appendix is one organ in the body that does not necessarily or does not really have a specific or a known function. It is an organ in the body that does not have a very what? Known function. It is there in our body, it is an organ in the body, and it can cause what? Problems in the body if not what? Taken care of. If it is not taken care of, it can cause problem in the body. And what is that problem that it can cause? When we have something called appendicitis. Appendicitis appendicitis is as a result of the inflammation is the inflammation of the appendix. Inflammation of the appendix is what we refer to as appendicitis. Now, when you allow substances that cannot be broken down, that cannot be degraded, when you permit them, when you give them entrance into the body, when you give them entrance into the system, if they are not broken down and they are not excreted from the body, they find their way into an organ called the appendix for storage. And when they become stored in the appendix for so long, it results to what we refer to as this condition called appendicitis. That is when you'll be having sharp pain in the lower side abdomen of the in the side lower abdomen. You'll be having some sharp pains there, and now this particular pain, if it is not taken care of as soon as possible and mistakenly a rupture happens to the organ, it can result to death. So that is what we know for appendicitis, for appendix that can cause appendicitis. So the next organ that we're talking about earlier on, we're talking about large intestine, and I've told us that it is the large intestine that helps to eliminate waste. It helps to eliminate waste from the body. It takes waste from the small intestine or the ileum. The small intestine is also called the ileum, and then it permits the waste to be sent out of the body. So it admits waste from admits waste from the small intestine, and then from the small intestine and passes it out through the rectum. It sends it out through the rectum. So in the rectum is the next organ. The rectum is the next organ. That is number 9. Number 9, rectum. So the rectum, its own function is to It's an elementary. It's the last phase of alimentary canal, and feces are stored temporarily before they are Before they are sent out of the body. It is in the rectum that the waste materials are being shaped into pellets. The rectum are shaped into pellets before they are removed. Sorry. Before they are removed from the body. So the rectum is responsible for shaping the what? The waste. It's responsible for shaping the waste into pellets before they are actually removed from the what? From the body. And the last thing that we have there is the last organ that we have is the what? Is the anus. The anus is the last what? Is the last organ that what? That the substance pass out of. So the anus helps to pass out the waste. So that is that about the alimentary canal of man. That is that about the alimentary canal of man. So let us go to our question once again. The question there says, the part of the human gut that has an acidic content is the A, the stomach, B, the duodenum, C, the ileum, and D, the colon. So who wants to answer the question now? I believe the question has been treated, so who wants to give us the answer to it? Does anybody want to give us
The stomach.
the what? The stomach.
The
Good.
stomach.
Yes. And what is responsible? What is responsible for that acidic nature?
The gastric gland.
You said
The hydrochloric acid.
the what?
The gastric gland.
The gastric gland that has secreted something. What did the gastric gland secrete?
Hydrochloric acid.
The gastric gland, let me put it right. The gastric gland is found in the small intestine. It has secreted a juice called gastric juice. In the gastric juice is where we now have the what? The
The hydrochloric.
HCl, the hydrochloric acid. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. So as far as we have come, does anybody have any question? Does anybody have any question?
So I have a question.
Okay, I'm listening.
Sir, you said that this thing, acidic content is released in the
You said
gastric gland is released in the small intestine.
no. The
Abi?
gastric gland is in the stomach, not in the small intestine. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
The gastric gland is in the small intestine. This is it here in our notes.
You are saying in the small intestine again.
Sorry, the stomach, please. Stomach. This is it in our notes. The stomach. We have in the stomach, that's where we have the what? The gastric juice that contains what? The HCl, the hydrochloric acid. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir.
It is in the stomach that we have what? The HCl that is found inside the gastric juice that is produced in the gastric gland. It is found in the stomach. Is that clear? So it is in the stomach that we have the acidic nature or acidic medium. So the answer to our question there, to number 26 question there, is the what? The stomach. That is option A. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. So before we go, let me quickly talk about the storage form of these food samples. Majorly the three that we've been talking about since. The three food samples, what are their storage forms? The first one that we'll be talking about is going to be, I'm coming, storage forms of food samples. Now, the first one is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. How is carbohydrates being stored? Carbohydrate is broken down to what? Is broken down to glucose. Are you with me? Carbohydrate is broken down to glucose. After digestion must have taken place, carbohydrate is degraded to glucose. So how is glucose being stored? Glucose cannot be stored in our body in this raw form. So it has to be converted to a storage what? To a storage form, which is glycogen. And what is responsible for that conversion? That is where we have the action of insulin. Insulin is responsible for the conversion of glucose to glycogen. Are we together? Are we together? And then
Yes, sir.
when our body needs the glucose, it is converted back to what? It is converted back to glucose by another enzyme called glucagon.
Glucagon.
Glucagon. This glucose, when it is converted by insulin to glycogen, it is stored in what? It is stored in the liver. It is stored in the liver. When the glycogen is produced, that is after the conversion of glucose by insulin, when glycogen is produced, the glycogen is stored in the liver. And when the body now needs the glucose again, another enzyme is being produced. These enzymes, enzyme 1 and enzyme 2, they are both produced they are both produced in the pancreas. So this is another question that could come out. Please, there are differences between digestive enzymes we have differences between digestive enzyme there are differences between digestive there are differences between digestive enzymes and pancreatic enzymes. When we talk about digestive enzymes, we are talking about one,
Sir, we cannot see your board.
you cannot see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I'm coming, please. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
You can see the screen now.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, like I was saying, I said carbohydrate. Let me quickly take a rundown of that. Carbohydrate is broken down to glucose, and then that is during digestion. Then for the storage now, the glucose cannot be stored in the body. If it is found in the body in form of glucose, it is problematic. So it is converted to glycogen, and it is done. The conversion is done by insulin. The conversion is done by what? Insulin. Insulin converts glucose to glycogen, and then this glycogen is then stored in the liver. And when the body is now deficient of,
Glucose.
hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Now when the body is now deficient of glucose,
Mm.
the glycogen will now be converted back towards glucose by another enzyme called the glucagon.
Glucagon.
Now I said these two enzymes, the enzyme number 1 insulin and enzyme number 2 glucagon, they are both produced in the pancreas. So I was trying to explain that you could come across a question that will tell you to differentiate between digestive enzymes and pancreatic enzymes. But both of them are, please listen, both of them are produced in the pancreas. Are you listening? The digestive enzymes and the pancreatic enzymes, they are produced in the pancreas. But when we talk about digestive enzymes, these are the ones that we are actually talking about. When we talk about digestive enzymes, we're talking about these ones. Number 1, we're talking about the amylase. Number 2, we're talking about the protease. And number 3, we're talking about the lipase.
The light.
So those are digestive enzymes produced in the pancreas. But when we are talking about the pancreatic enzymes, those ones are just what? They are just 2 in number. The first one we have what? Insulin. The first one we have insulin, which converts what? Converts
Glucose to glycogen.
glucose. Thank you very much. It converts glucose to glycogen. And the second one is glucagon. Glucagon that converts what? Glycogen. Glycogen back to glucose. So is it clear? Is it clear?
Yeah.
So the both
Yes,
of
sir.
them, the two sets of enzymes are produced in the pancreas, but one is referred to as digestive enzyme and the other is referred to as pancreatic enzyme. So carbohydrate is converted to what? I mean the glucose after it has been broken down from carbohydrate, it is broken down to glucose. It is used by the body. The excess of it is stored in form of glycogen. When it is needed, it is converted back to what? Glucose by the glucagon. The second one is what? The proteins. Proteins. Proteins are degraded to, they are broken down to amino acids. Amino acids cannot be stored in the body. Amino acid cannot be what? Cannot be stored in the body. So the moment the body makes use of the amount it needs, it what? It expels the remaining. And the system of what? Of eliminating the remaining amino acid is what we refer to as deamination. Deamination is the removal of amino acids in form of urea. Are we together? So amino acid they are being removed in form of what? Urea, in a process known as deamination. It cannot be stored in the body. And then the third one is what? Is the lipase, the lipids rather, fat and oils. Let me write fat and oils. This one is broken down to fatty acid
Glycerol.
and glycerol. Fatty acid and glycerol. The ones that the body uses is what's being used up immediately, and the excess of it is being stored in our muscles. Excess is stored in muscles and in the skin as body fats. And in the skin as body fats. So that is how we have, or that is what we have for the digestive system and alimentary canal of animals. Any question? Any question? All right. So thank you very much.
No,
We
sir.
see when next we see ourselves. Bye for now.